Hello, so this is just a video on my implementation of a belief system, send into actors actions, which use a custom VPI interface. So I'll just go through this. The belief system, this is my session-wide world state. It lives in the game instance, which persists across the entire play session regardless of level transitions. So basically it stores a simple state string which I've called beliefs. So you could have like Dustin's evil, Dustin's good, storms coming, things like that. So the basically in the blueprint here, this is like a intermediary level. This is actually from my other game, Certain Tales, but I was got this idea, so I've basically just copied that and then re-implemented this new game all into the systems I had there. So basically, a blueprint in any of the game, any level, all that kind of stuff, will add a belief using this. So it'll check an array of beliefs. Does it contain it? The name contains no. It'll check against this. And if it isn't in there, it'll go to this add to the catalog of beliefs, get the belief name, and add it, call on belief added, which is the functions that I've added in here. So I have the add belief and the has belief. So then that basically will handle the adding of the beliefs, and then the has belief is basically just the catalog of the beliefs. Does it contain it? And just return to that function, and that's basically when a scene will check if it does have the belief, which is self-explanatory. So when a scene loads through the scene manager, that does a check there, and it'll check, does the belief exist? And then that'll set the world state within the scene manager. So the key rule there is beliefs are permanent to the session. So once they're written, they don't get cleared. They represent things like the player has discovered or decided. So the world only moves forward. You can't undo that. The decisions are pretty much hard coded into the game from that point. So in my game currently, I've set up a farmer Dunstan, and it's like a drunkard, I guess, like old Peck. And when you speak to Peck, he tells you a rumor, which becomes a belief. But then when you speak to the farmer himself, he's got his own idea. So then you get given a choice. Is it good or is it bad? And once you make that choice off of two other beliefs, the one you choose then gets hard coded into the game. So in my game folder, blueprints, I've made this interactable blueprint, and I've set these parameters on the inputs: action type, target actor, float param, name param, and target transform. And I've created an enumerator for the actions instead of using a name type, because there's a bit of ambiguity there. So I've set up an enum so there'll be no spelling mistakes, and even if there is, it always is hard coded to this. So you got the look at, move to, stop movement, play dialogue, set hidden, set visible, set weather, screen fade, add string, start dialogue, play sound, and spawn particle. So in the scene manager base, I created this blueprint helper function, send action to actor. So when you're chaining events, this is basically like the scene manager is going to be the director. It's the brain of the actual game, is it? So anytime we want to do something in the game, it all flows through this helper function of send an action. So I'll just go to one of the other blueprints here. Stand by. Go to the event graph. That's game toolkit stuff. That's nothing I've added. So I've added this here. So anything that's affected by the scene manager, like weather, screen fades, or here I'm going to be doing a blackout widget or a few moments later type screens and things like that. That'll be here. And dialogue, play sounds, spawning particles, all the things that are handled by scene managers are in the event action, which is in interfaces, default, execute action. So I created the execute action. That basically is that's the actual interface. And then that'll switch on the enumerator, which we got there. I just showed you there. The universal actions. Where are we at? Base. So here we are. So basically everything in that enumerator gets listed here. I'll just hide most of them so it's not over cluttered. I can actually split that to two different enumerators. So you've got Scene Manager and like NPC one, which I'll get to next. But for now, I'm just leaving it like that because I don't have like 20 odd actions yet. But if I do, I will split them for ease. So basically, you've got an action type, you've got a list of actions, and then each one will branch off. So the best way to show you here is just, so basically start dialogue is literally just start dialogue sequence, and then that'll get the name for the dialogue row. And it's the same with everything. It's just your normal functions, but instead of calling them and repeating it all the time for doing an action, I'll show you in a scene that I've created. You basically just call the action and then just string along all your game events. So this is the NPC base, and as you can see, that's all of the functions that are like an NPC would do, like looking at, move to, stop movement, play dialogue. So basically at the end of these ones, I've put a call on action finished. So that basically as soon as the character you've told to look somewhere, he'll look, that'll call action finished, and then that is the sequential, it'll move on to the next task. And it'll know the last one's finished, which is quite handy for dialogue because sometimes your dialogue will play and another action will jump in and try and do it. So on movement and dialogue, I've created up these custom events that are binding to on movement complete and on dialogue complete. So it branches off instead of just call on action function on action finished. You basically come off the dialogue, bind it to a complete, and then when you've actions completed, it'll move on to unbind and then call on action finished, so it knows the dialogue's completely finished without chopping and changing different actions. So the move to and the dialogue is the two that you'll need a custom event on. Target transform, that's basically just locations. So come out of there, break transform, you get location, rotation, scale, and then you just plug it in. So if you want a character to look at, it's already programmed in here. And then you just got to do a reference, which I'll show you next. So this is an overlap box that I've added to my scene manager, and then I've dragged that into the scene. So basically you come off, cast to the player, because that's the other character, that's the character you want to be overlapping. So you've got no like static meshes or that are causing a trigger you don't want. Then I've got a golem run here. This is just locked here so that if you've already done it, it won't rerun the same scene. So that true goes to nothing, and then false will start this branch. So this is what I was on about in the event action, send into actor. So the target transform is already set up. So you just need a reference to plug in. So if you want the character to look at the golem, so the target actor is the golem, you come in here, you want the actor golem to look at the player character, you just call the player character location, plug it in, and all the work's done there. You just need a reference for each event. So he'll look at the character, delay, and then you send another action to the golem that you want him to move. So he'll move to the location you plug in. So on the side here, I've got loads of variables referencing different points in the game or like different characters. So I'll show you for now the move target A. Oh, here we go. So if you click on scene manager details, I've got all these here. So move target A is the BP door. So you just put the eyedropper on that. So the best thing to do probably is to let you see it all play out. But first of all, I'll just walk through it. So it does a move to, and then I've got another move to action here. So the farmer Dunstan, which we were talking about, he actually chases the golem back to the cave. So both targets have, to be fair, I could actually drag these two into here, but just so it's cleanly laid out, in case there's any changes. You've got the cave door move target variable, goes to location, and that's where you want him to move to. Same here. And then the one person you want to move, the target actor, is Dunstan and the golem. Yeah. So target B actually is a, yeah, that's wrong actually. So what I've done here is the golem will run to the cave, but the farmer only goes to a certain area, which is this here. So I've set up actors that are just basically target points that you can drag in, so you can use the eyedropper to place that location. We'll run the scene anyway. So I've kept in the toggle view, press the tab key to like do this, but I've put a range now so that if you press tab, everything in the level doesn't come up unless you walk close to it. So this is the scene. The golem runs, and then the farmer walks to his location, and then there's a dialogue shooting off there. So I'll just go back to the thing so you can see. When we triggered the box, yeah, my player's character triggers the box, then the golem looks at my actor, then the sequence is a bit of a delay so it doesn't just look choppy, and then obviously the golem runs and then the farmer runs. There's a delay of 3 seconds to allow, I could actually put floats in there as well to say how long I want that to take. So basically there's a delay to allow the walk, and then instead of just like start dialogue, I've got the events, because then that's got the stopper at the end. That basically gives you complete dialogue, because if you don't put that in and you just play a normal start dialogue, the dialogue's still playing and it's jumping to the next action. So like I've set the golem here, once he goes to the cave door, he'll go hidden, but not until the dialogue's done. So I've put that in. But even without the delay, the golem will disappear once the dialogue's finished. I've just put that in for staging during the sequence. So once he's hidden, there's another dialogue, which was when you see my player character goes, oh, I wonder what that was about, I'll speak to Martyr. So that's all in the data table to play after that scene's played out. And then unbind all events from the golem and the farmer, because there's dialogues with the farmer after this scene. And then I've got the set golem run variable, which is the basic little gate there to say as it played or not. So once that's played, it'll set that as true, and every time you go over the box, it won't replay that scene. So what I did was, once I'd done the scene, I decided I wanted a little level sequence, so I put that level sequence camera in, made the level sequence timed in for the scene, and then I've just added that in as a sequence, so that plays soon as the overlap box is triggered. And that's pretty much that, but it's definitely the cleanest way of doing that. So you know how you want your scene to play out, you just call the action to the actor, and you can get, I could have like 10 different actors performing tasks during this scene, because I'll just do each one as a sequence or whatever I need them to do. So if I want everyone to look at the golem as he's running, I can set the other two NPCs on a sequence and just set them to look at. So here we go, yeah, look at. So if I wanted the other NPCs to do that, I'll just put another two sequence nodes here, pins here, put the target as Martyr and Peck, and then just use that reference there as actual the golem's location, not the player. So that is pretty much how you do the whole send to action and the BPI universal actions. Is took me a long time to get that set up, but it's working perfect now. So I also built a pre-dialogue system on the talk to function in the toolkit. So if you've got an NPC that you want to speak to, but you don't want it to interfere with the main belief choices, or you want him, say the farmer, you don't want to speak to him till you've got more information from, say, Martyr or Peck, this is what I've done here anyway for that. I've added state strings in as variables, and all this is controlled from the actual NPCs in the viewport. You just need to set up a system like, oh, he needs to speak to that person, that's going to be the state string, and I'll show you in a minute, but basically this is the background work. So if you want to do a pre-dialogue choice, you set that as yes in the viewport. So if you click on like Peck, in the default, you've got pre-dialogue checklist now. So his pre-dialogue, he has to speak to Martyr before you can speak to him. So that there's like a state string, but you actually set all the state strings in these pre-spoken variables in the editor. So nothing's actually done with the blueprints. It's all handled from the editor. Pre-dialogue string. So as soon as you've spoke to him, the pre-dialogue string will set, and that's the dialogue for the pre-dialogue. So basically, use pre-dialogue. Has he spoken to Martyr? Yes. The pre-dialogue string will set once his dialogue's played out. And then that'll just go back to NPC. So once he's done the pre-dialogue, which is spoken to person, yes. Pre-dialogue string check, yes. So if he's already spoke this, it'll go straight to the main dialogue, which is where all your beliefs dialogue and all that is there. Seems a bit confusing. Even I'm like, what have I created? But once you've actually done it a few times, you're like, this is actually really decent, because everything is just programmed from NPCs, unless it's like characters moving around and looking at, then you do that from the scene manager, and then this is all the background work. So pre-dialogue's done, dialogue's been done, it'll go to the mains line. If you've passed the checked, you need to do the pre-dialogue, and it's not been run, it'll start the dialogue and add that state string that we've put there, Peck pay, and then it won't redo it. So once all the pre-dialogue's done and all the conditions have been met, when you actually speak to him the next time, it'll make sure you've spoken to that person, and then it'll just start dialogue, and then it'll do the state string and show belief. So the event show belief is what gives you the choice of what belief option you want to do.